In this video, I'm going to be ranking all of the Star Wars The Vintage Collection boxed deluxe figures from worst to first. Hello Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video. And as I mentioned in the intro, in this video I'm going to be ranking all of the Star Wars The Vintage Collection deluxe figures that are boxed. So I will not be including any other type of deluxe figure, including the new Cobb Vanth and the Mandalorian Maldo Kreese with the spiders. So this is just these boxed versions. This is going back to when we were a little bit fearful that the Vintage Collection was going to go the way of the Black Series and become plastic free. Thank God that didn't happen, but they did stick with these boxed items for certain figures, some would say, so that they could charge us a little bit more. Now, to be honest, this is going to be the most difficult worst to first video that I've ever made, because all of these figures in front of you here, all of these deluxe figures are deluxe in their own particular way. Some of them include cool accessories, which ups the value proposition. Some of them are deluxe because of the size of the figure. Other ones are deluxe because they've got better paint applications, which I know sounds strange, but at the end of the day, that's why it's going to be so difficult to rank these, because do I rank something that's cool because it's got lots of accessories and the whole world building element is there, or do I rank something highly because it's actually an amazing figure, and even though perhaps it should have been on a card back, it's still pretty cool to have in the line. So you'll have to wait and see what my rankings are, and I will be giving you the reasons behind where I rank them. And to be honest, looking at all of them in front of you here, there isn't actually any that I really dislike too much. And also, something that I never noticed before is that the Luke Skywalker there with Grogu is actually a bigger box than the others, and I've never noticed that before. It's slightly wider there than the others, but hey, that's just something I've noticed. So if you do happen to enjoy the video, don't forget to drop a like down below and subscribe if you are new, and let's get into this. Alright then, so in last place I have ranked the Ahsoka Tano and Grogu from The Mandalorian as the worst deluxe box set in the Vintage Collection, and there's a couple of reasons for it really, but ultimately it comes down to the fact that we already had the figure on a single card back, and the only real thing in this set that I was concerned about was her poncho, and that is something that I felt should have come with the actual figure on the card back anyway. You know, Vintage Collection figures should come with their soft goods. Other than that, you get a few other world building pieces in there, but not enough for me to really call this deluxe. And if you just look on the back there, you can see the other bits that you've got with it. I do apologise, I don't have them to show you in hand, but I do have the figure here. So you've got her poncho, you've got the little owl, the lantern, you get a Grogu, which they seem to throw in a lot of these sets, and her lightsabers and things like that. So you don't get an awful lot really to warrant it being a deluxe, and that is why for me it's the worst one. Alright then, so in 11th place I have put Jango Fett from Attack of the Clones, and this might surprise a few of you out there because ultimately the figure's pretty cool, right? It's Jango Fett, he's looking pretty good there, but ultimately for me this should never have been a deluxe set, and for that reason he is so far down in my list. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever that this figure shouldn't have been on a card back, and to charge the amount of money that they were charging for this figure for me was completely wrong. If you look at the back here, you'll see what you got with it. Basically all you got was the extra added fire effects, and really the figure should have come with this poncho and the other jetpack as well. The version that we previously got in the Vintage Collection back in 2010-11 it was far superior in terms of what you got, and that was not a deluxe figure. The figure itself is also reusing some parts, and ultimately there is very little paint applications on the figure, so for me there is nothing in this that says deluxe whatsoever. And as I'm ranking deluxe figures here, this one is very near the bottom. In 10th place I've gone for the Incinerator Trooper and Grogu from The Mandalorian, and although you would think that this is a deluxe set because of all the extra world building pieces that you get, I just feel that another Grogu and just a bunch of plastic fire effects doesn't really mean that this is a deluxe set, and especially as we already got the figure on a single card as well. Granted, it's a really nice figure, I do like it, and I did like this at the time, but for me, I'm not a massive fan of like fake fire effects anyway, although the ones in this set are pretty good, granted, they really are. There you go, you can see what you got on the back there in that little white panel. But you know, as you can see here, I display the figure without all of that stuff. I have him as though he's walking into the cantina with his flamethrower on his shoulder there, instead of having all of the extra effects with with Grogu and whatever. Now, you know, each time we got one of these Grogus, it was different in some way compared to the previous version. This one, his eyes are closed and he's using the Force. So, you know, it's pretty cool and everything. But for me as a deluxe set, nah, it just doesn't cut it. Okay then, so in 9th place, I've gone for Luke Skywalker and Grogu from the Book of Boba Fett. And I'm already kind of regretting putting this one so far down in the list. It is pretty cool. Look at all the pieces you get there. But it is quite scene specific. I guess that goes against it a little bit. But I think what really killed this one for me at the time was that they brought out the single carded Luke Skywalker at pretty much the same time. So when I got the carded version of this figure, I looked at all these extra little pieces and I just thought, I'm going to lose all those. So when I opened this one, my son had it and I just had the carded version because I just need the figure really. But looking at all the pieces that you do get in this, it is pretty cool and I do like it. So maybe it should have been higher up in the list. But there we go. I've done it now. He's in 9th place. And in 8th place, I've gone for Sabine Wren from the Ahsoka show. Now, this one's a bit of a weird one, really, because once again, this figure could have been on a single card, really. You do get the Lothcat with it, which is pretty cool. And ultimately, I think this is one of those ones that was a deluxe because of the intricate paint applications, which is a bit weird, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, this is the vintage collection we're talking about here. We should have all of that. But really, this one's low down because of the helmet issue, the oversized helmet. You can see it there. And quite frankly, the Sabine Wren that we just got in that Rebels 2-pack blows this one out of the water in every aspect. You have the swappable head helmet, which sorts out the scaling issue. And also the paint applications on that Rebels version of Sabine Wren is far superior to this one. I just prefer that look in general. But this is still a pretty cool figure and it's not one of the worst, but it's nowhere near the top either. And in 7th place, I've gone for Chrysanthemum from the Book of Boba Fett. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this figure whatsoever. I really do like it. And it is a bigger figure, I guess, which is why it's classed as a deluxe. You do get a couple of accessories in there. But what killed this one was at the same time, they released the convention exclusive Chrysanthemum, which came with even more accessories, which kind of put this one into the shadows, really. But it's still a great figure. 7th is pretty respectable in this list. And as you can see on the back there, you do get a bunch of accessories. You get swappable hands. You get the little electric effects for those hands, for his knuckle dusters. You get a mug, and you get some other pieces in the set as well. But once again, you know, having two of the same figure with just a different head and a couple of different accessories really kind of killed this one for me. And now you can pick up this version of the Chrysanthemum pretty cheaply at various clearance stores, which is a bit of a shame because this one should have been like an absolute top seller. But at the end of the day, some people bought the convention exclusive, some people bought this one, and ultimately both suffered because of it. But it's still a very, very cool figure. Really cool Wookiee there, loving the sort of fur effects and everything on him. But he is 7th in my list of the worst to first of the deluxe packs. Alright then, so in 6th place, I've gone for the Imperial Stormtrooper Navarro Cantina from The Mandalorian. This is the Stormtrooper that you get the E-Web cannon with, and some would say that this is a true deluxe, basically. You're getting a figure and you're getting a cool accessory, something from the scene that is actually useful that you can have in your displays. You also get this little fire effect here for the end of the E-Web cannon as well. So perhaps this one could have even been a little bit higher in my list. But, you know, my top 5 is my top 5, and this one just missed out on the top 5. But this one is a really, really good release. I think it was the first time that we got this particular Stormtrooper with the rocker ankles as well. So it's based on the Rogue One Stormtrooper, but updated with rocker ankles, which is pretty cool. And the E-Web cannon with a little ammo box there is very, very cool as well. I bought a bunch of these at the time. I'm really glad that I did. They ended up being pretty cheap on the secondary market as well. You could pick them up pretty cheap, which was good. It's a good army builder for Stormtrooper. And the E-Web cannon there, I think I could use that with the new Snowtrooper that's going to be coming out, unless of course they re-release it with that, because that would really go well for a, you know, attack on Echo base setup that you want to do with your collection. But as I said, this is a good one. I really do like this one. This to me was worth the money at least, and you know, maybe it should have been higher up than 6, but we'll have to take a look at my top 5. Alright then, so we are in the top 5 now, and in 5th place I've gone for Boba Fett Tatooine from the Book of Boba Fett. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this may have been the very first deluxe figure of this kind that we got, these boxed deluxe figures. I think it was either a Walmart or a Target exclusive, and I'm pretty certain that it did come out before the Stormtrooper, Ahsoka and Incinerator Trooper, which all came out at pretty much the same time as either a Walmart or Target exclusive. Once again, I can't really remember. Being over in the UK, we don't have those exclusives, we just get them from all the same places. So let me know in the comment section below if you know which way around that was. But I think we were able to pre-order this one before the others. Maybe the others ended up in our collections before this one, but this one's high up in my list because ultimately it's an amazing figure. This Boba Fett is really screen accurate. It's got a removable helmet that is actually in scale for once, and once you take off that helmet, he's got an amazing head sculpt underneath as well. He's got soft goods. Now really, should this figure be a deluxe figure? Not really, but at the time I think we're all quite happy with it. You do get quite a few accessories with it. You get the rocket, you get the removable helmet, as I mentioned, you get 2 blasters, and you get those little Stormtrooper helmets, which are battle damage, which was a nice little touch at the time. But in terms of the figure from the Book of Boba Fett, what an outstanding figure this was, and still to this day, it's one of my favourite Boba Fett figures that I have in my collection, so I'm really happy with it. So he is in 5th place. And in 4th place, I've gone for the Tusken Warrior and Massif from the Book of Boba Fett. And even though we did have this figure on a single card, it was a much anticipated figure. It was one of the best characters from the Book of Boba Fett, and really the clincher for this one is the creature, the Massif. It was really, really good to finally get another creature in the vintage collection. It hadn't happened for a long time. It's got pretty decent articulation, the paint applications are good, and ultimately the sculpt's pretty good as well. And I was just really happy at the time to get a creature in the line, and for me this does elevate it into a deluxe set, that you're getting that creature with it, because it's, you know, it's bigger than the Loth Cats at the end of the day. You wouldn't be able to get this creature on a card back with the figure, so it did have to be done in one of these deluxe boxes. And yeah, that's why it's high up in my list. That's the Tusken Warrior and Massif. Alright, we're on to the top 3 now, and in 3rd place I've gone for the Dark Trooper from The Mandalorian. And this is one that I might be slightly regretting putting up so high, but at the time I remember really enjoying the charging station feature and the way they all could connect if you bought multiple of them. Unfortunately, this figure has been heavily discounted everywhere, and that has also affected the single carded version. But if you just look at the back here to see what you've got included, granted, fire effects for his feet, you do get the swappable hands, which is really good, which you don't get with the single carded version. But I really enjoyed that charging station there. I do know a few people that have got those in their collections, you know, all lined up with about 10 of them, and I think it looks absolutely fantastic. But I think maybe I am ranking this one a little bit too high. There are some maybe a little bit better than this one, but it's the Dark Trooper. They were so cool in The Mandalorian. What an awesome trooper. He's got the little light pipe there on his head so his eyes glow, whether you like that or not. It doesn't look great from the back, but from the front, when you've got some light coming down, it does look really, really good. Perhaps, as I said, this one is a little bit high. He is in 3rd place, but as I said, I did really enjoy that charging station for the Dark Trooper. And in 2nd place, I've gone for Garazeb Zeb Aurelius from Rebels. And this is an absolutely phenomenal figure. Now, perhaps it shouldn't be a deluxe figure because he could fit on a card back, but he is a lot bigger than most of your other figures that we have. And you do get some pretty cool accessories in there. You get, obviously, his blaster, but you also do get his folded out blaster, which goes into like a staff, which is pretty cool. And the little electro effects which go on the end as well. As I said, many of you may feel that this should have just been a standard release, but it is a big figure, and ultimately I'm just over the moon with how good this figure ended up being. It is an excellent figure, and it is definitely a contender for my figure of the year for sure. Can't really say too much else about it apart from the fact that it's just a really, really good figure, and even though it's maybe shouldn't be a deluxe, it has to be up there, man, because it's just so good. Which means the figure that I have ranked as the best in my worst first of the deluxe vintage collection figures is Paz Vizsla from The Mandalorian. And again, perhaps this figure could have been on his own card back, but he does come with a load of accessories, and he is a big, big figure. But this for me is what it's all about. What an amazing character. He was absolutely fantastic in all of the series of The Mandalorian, particularly the first series when he was flying around with his massive chain gun and everything. And there he is in that pose. And you've got paint applications here. You've got battle damage. He could have maybe had a little bit of a wash on him, but in terms of the figure, the articulation, the sculpt, the accessories, everything about this figure is fantastic. and I just love having him in my display. You couldn't have a Mandalorian display without him, basically. And there you can see on the back, you also get that little shield and knife, so you can create the Book of Boba Fett scenes as well, which is also a nice touch. And you also get those little fire effects for his jetpack and the end of the sort of chain cannon there. But what a fantastic release this was. Would prefer to have him on a card back, of course I would, but in terms of the overall quality of the figure and the character that he represents, I think they did an amazing job with this one. And as I said, it's one of my all-time favorite vintage collection figures, so he had to be at the top of my deluxe figure list. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what your worst to first list, or if you don't want to list all 12, maybe just list which you think is the best deluxe figure that they have released in these types of boxes. What we can be glad about is that these boxes are now over, although they have gone to those slightly bigger card backs, which I'm not really a fan of either. I would prefer just maybe a slightly bigger bubble on a standard sized card back. I think they could do it, maybe a slightly bigger tray with some of the accessories behind the figure, but ultimately what they want to do is they want to spread all of those accessories out in those bubbles so you can really see what you're getting, so they can justify the deluxe price. But as I said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I thank you all for watching. It's been really difficult to rank these. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members. Your support means a great deal to me as always, so thank you so much. Thanks for watching everybody, and we shall see you on the next one.